Cern Basher has been out of town so much in the last 3 months that he decided not to go out of town in the busiest travel weekend of the year. Cern, are you're just relaxing at home?
That's essentially it. Yeah, Florida this time of year is a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
So no reason to go anywhere cold.
Yeah, I've actually made the claim that October is the best month to travel anywhere.
Yeah.
Not because it's beautiful everywhere, although it is, but because nobody travels in October because it's so beautiful at home. Literally, it's like the worst travel month for the hotels and the vendors and the people in those locations because everybody just stays home in October. Anyway, that's a sidebar. It's useful. It's useful information if you're looking for a time to travel inexpensively because everybody wants your business. So Cern, thank you for being able to put together some shows for me this weekend. So I had some content to share. Is there anything you want to say before you begin entertaining us with your slides?
Well, we're going to talk about two big controversial topics in this show.
Okay.
One of them we teased in the last show, and that's about whether or not there's an AI bubble, and we'll spend some time on that.
Okay.
The second one is a David and Goliath story.
Hmm.
So I'll leave it there. We'll come back to that.
All right. And I'm quite confident that we will attack the AI bubble from a completely different standpoint because there's so many ways to look at the AI bubble. With all that said, I'll let you crank it up.
Okay, that sounds good. And so we ended the last show with this man, Jensen Huang of NVIDIA. And Jensen is a survivor. Jensen is a guy that has been under attack from his competitors ever since he started his company, NVIDIA, but has persevered and is now essentially on top of the stack of companies in the space.
Yeah.
Right. And the question remains, how long will he stay there?
Yeah.
Because now he's the man with the even bigger target on his back.
And it's
Right.
not necessarily because people are trying to compete with him, but rather because it's considered to be such a winner take most enterprise of getting to AGI, getting to dominate this industry.
Yeah. Now, what I could have done and should have done, and perhaps we'll do another show, Randy, this week, um, is looking at NVIDIA's financials. I prepared
Oh,
some charts. I posted them on X.
I've heard about that. We definitely should do that. I've
Yeah.
heard people compliment you on that amazing effort you did. Who you want to become AJ now?
I can't compete with AJ, and that's fine. AJ does great work.
But
I like to look.
you make prettier charts than him.
I do make prettier charts than AJ. Let's say that. Let's be honest about that.
Right.
Yeah, but no, but the depth of AJ's work is astounding. Um, but one of the narratives out there is that, this is all a bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is courtesy of Hedgeye, which does some great cartoons, turning the crank, and then NVIDIA pops out blowing bubbles. So, in order to address this question, let's go back into history.
Okay.
And this next information is courtesy of Ben Carlson,
Hmm.
who wrote this book, Don't Fall for It, A Short History of Financial Scams. Okay. And in his book, there's a chapter on the railway bubble, basically of the 1800s.
Hmm.
Okay. And so this text that I'm about to sort of go through with you is his words. I didn't write this. I essentially copied this. The highlights are mine, Randy. If there's something highlighted, that's what I did.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So I'm not claiming any of this work as my own. This is Ben Carlson's work. Okay. So he's saying that the easiest historical analogies are the telecom build out in the 1990s, and the dot-com bubble and the railway bubbles of the 1800s. And he says that each period was defined by excessive infrastructure spending, investor euphoria, and bubbles that popped but still had lasting positive effects.
Hmm.
Right? The railway, dot-com, telecom bubbles all changed the world.
Yeah.
Right? Investors got super excited about it. They were bubbles, but yet they weren't just, nothing, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Weren't just castles in the sky.
Right.
And so some people are worried that we're seeing excessive infrastructure spending now, and that this, this is just another bubble. Okay. So he wrote this chapter in this book, and I'll just kind of read some of this with you. And he says, like most bubbles, the railway mania actually started out as a good idea that was taken too far by investors and those selling railway projects alike. Right. And he says the first commuter trains in the UK appeared during the 1820s, and they traveled 12 and a half miles per hour, which reduced the trip from London to Glasgow to 24 hours. And the Railway Times at the time said, what more could any reasonable man want? Right? A 24-hour trip from London to Glasgow.
Yeah.
But then in 1825, the mania started to hit with the opening of the first steam engine train. An economic downturn snuffed out any speculation, and by 1840, shares of the main railway companies were selling at a discount to their issue price. And he's saying stocks acted more like bonds than stocks back then. But at that point, 2,000 miles of track were complete, leading some to speculate that the national railway system in Britain was already finished. Right? To me, this sounds a little bit like what we're going through with AI right now. We're building these AI data centers, and people are saying, is this enough? Have we overbuilt?
Right.
Right? And the clear answer to that is no. But then he says, memories are short when people think there's money to be made. So this first mini mania in railway stocks became a distant memory in the summer of 1842. And that's when Prince Albert persuaded Queen Victoria to take her first train ride. So this was the all clear that investors needed to hop aboard the railway stock train. And by 1844, investors viewed these companies as safe and secure with huge upside potential, right? And so it didn't take long for that to morph into reckless euphoria. Along comes a man by the name of George Hudson. And this guy is no Jensen Wang, okay? So he was one of the, what they say is the original modern capitalist, using publicity, salesmanship, and a cult of personality to attract enormous amounts of capital and goodwill from the public, okay? He was a shrewd businessman who knew how to persuade people. So he pounced on the opportunity by creating his own line of railways in the 1830s. And through a series of consolidations, mergers, schemes, bribes, acquisitions, and an uncanny ability to sell, he consolidated more power than anyone in the industry. And he eventually had the largest railway company in Britain. By 1844, he oversaw 1/3 of the total tracks in operation, measuring over 1,000 miles in distance. Okay? Now, the problem was back then CEOs weren't paid a lot of money. And he became frustrated how little money he was making. So what's the solution, Randy? Well, you cut corners to increase wealth. Okay? So auditing back then was not a thing. So it allowed him to do basically whatever he wanted. So he did this by keeping his fellow directors and shareholders in the dark about the inner workings of his companies. This included a refusal to hold finance meetings, changing accounting methods, right? And just basically hiding, the financials. When he joined the board of one railway company in 1842, his first order of business was to announce an immediate change to the company's accounting methods, proclaiming, "I will have no statistics on my railway." So that's nice, right?
Yeah.
Start making up whatever you want. So by 1845, there were 500 new railway companies in existence.
Wow.
Okay, and the stock prices in the sector were up 500%. And of course, this guy did really well. He purchased a palatial estate. Entrance to Hyde Park was the largest private home in all of London. Right, his name became synonymous with success. Right, and so on. So the problem was, as an example here, there were literally plans for tracks that started nowhere and went nowhere with no stops along the way.
Sounds like California.
Yeah,
we have
there
a
you go.
railway like that.
California ahead of its time. The estimated cost of the nearly 1,200 railways under consideration were more than 560 million pounds. That was more than the national income of the entire country. Right? So we're not yet at that level with AI where we're spending more than the GDP of the US.
Right.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
Let's give it a couple of years. And he says the most mind-boggling aspect of all this money pouring in is it came from private investors. This wasn't the government investing in the infrastructure of their country, but investors who were looking to get rich.
Right.
Okay. So there were just three railway journals at the outset of the 1840s, led by the Railway Times. By the time the mania reached its zenith in 1845, there were 14 biweekly railway papers, two daily editions, and one was published every day, morning and evening. This is almost like the internet before the internet. Okay. So things progressed. He tried to get Charles Dickens as the editor of a new publication he called the Daily News.
Mm.
Dickens, I guess, to his credit, was a smart man. He said, "I'm not a fan of Hudson," and supposedly remarked that he, Dickens, should be the last man in the world to be a supporter of it.
Mm.
So not everybody lost their heads, Randy. But here's how this worked. He said the schemes work like this. Newspaper ads would promise a 10% dividend for anyone who put money into a new railway project. If the project got funding enough, the directors would hold on to a large allocation of shares in the newly formed corporation.
Mhm.
This created enough scarcity to push up the price from the flood of new investors, which thereby allowed the directors to flood the market with their shares by selling at a premium price. So he was the master of the scheme, promising unsustainable dividend yields of 50% to inflate the share prices on certain issues, which only encouraged more insider trading by himself and the company directors. These were blatant pump and dump schemes. So we now have obviously a lot of regulation and things around some of these
Yeah.
things now. We now have auditing of financial statements, right?
Right. For
So
instance, yeah,
a
statistics.
lot of the issues that we had back then, we shouldn't have today. Of course, we can still have financial fraud
Yeah.
for a while.
Our financial looking the other way. I don't know.
Yeah.
2008 comes to mind.
Yeah. So the investing public didn't care. Parliament published a report in the summer of 1845 revealing the identity of 20,000 investors who had subscribed for at least £2,000, which would have been a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Hudson's name was on there. There were 157 members of Parliament, almost 260 clergymen, and Charles Darwin.
Mm. Mm.
Darwin is said to have lost up to 60% in the aftermath of the mania,
Mm.
but that was actually better than most had fared in the bloodbath that followed. The rest were regular people, showing how broad the speculation was. Many investors were subscribed for more shares than they could ever hope to pay for, but the idea was they would all have the chance to sell at a premium before getting all of their capital called in to create the actual railway projects. Most people assumed the greater fool theory applied, but no one planned on being the last fool standing.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So anyway, by 1850, the amount invested was around 250 million pounds, almost half the GDP of Great Britain at the time.
Hmm.
Okay. So there's an old saying that markets take the stairs up, but an elevator down, and railway stocks were no different. Rising interest rates were the first pinprick in the railway bubble in the summer of 1845. Bankruptcies hit an all-time high in 1846, just a year after the height of the mania. People from all walks of life and levels of wealth were ruined. By the start of 1850, railway share prices had fallen an astronomical 85% on average.
Mm.
Okay. Anyway, so Hudson then had a fall from grace,
Yeah, no kidding.
right? He was never prosecuted in a court of law because securities laws at the time didn't protect shareholders the way they do now.
Mm.
But he was tried and convicted in the court of public opinion
Mhm.
and ostracized by the elite class,
Mhm.
which was, he's saying here, is a big blow to his gigantic ego. In the end, he was eventually arrested for not paying his debts, and he died broke years later.
Oh, wow.
So I guess he got what he was due,
Yeah.
right? Um, so, you think about the dot-com boom and bust,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's interesting because Mark Andreessen is on record saying all those ideas are working today. I can't think of a single idea from that era that isn't working today in terms of the dot-com companies,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? I think of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, now X, Google,
Sure.
all the things that came out. Maybe pets.com didn't survive,
Right.
but you can certainly buy any pet supplies you want to online,
Yeah.
right? So it goes on here. It says the railway boom and bust had some positive outcomes as well. Not all was lost from this period of untamed speculation, greed, and accounting fraud. By 1855, there were over 8,000 miles of railroad track in operation, giving Britain the highest density of railroad tracks in the world, measuring 7 times the length of France or Germany. The railways set up during those years came to represent 90% of the total length of the current British railway system. People and businesses across the country experienced massive gains in efficiency through cheaper and faster transportation. And essentially what ended up happening was, tens of thousands of people from Ireland, for example, were provided employment throughout their famine years. And in many ways, this was a wealth transfer from the rich and middle class speculators to the labor class. Right. So not all was lost, I guess, in that regard.
Right.
All right, we're almost done. So, the point that he's trying to make here is just in the middle paragraph. It took time for the combustion engine to completely replace the horse and carriage. The promises of the internet came true, but we had to live for the dot-com crash to get there. Right, and he makes the point that as car ownership first took off in the 1920s, there were 108 automakers in the U.S., and by the 1950s, were whittled down to the big 3. Right, the entire airline industry basically lost money or went out of business in the century after air travel was invented. So the suggestion here is that this could be happening again with AI.
Yeah, I mean, you could even apply it in more specificity. You've got over 100 robot companies right now.
Yeah.
And even though there might be niches in the future, some of those robot companies aren't going to make it.
Yeah. And yet this is the process that we have to go through to find out who the best one is. That's just capitalism at its finest. Right. And the euphoria that you get about, robots, for example, is what attracts the capital that we need to develop the robots. And yet, yes, a lot of investors will lose their money. And I guess, is that such a bad thing? Or is that sounds like a good process in that regard, right?
It sounds like a good process, and it really boils down to something we talk about on this channel all the time, and that is information arbitrage. So again, I talk about my business, my own experience, of course, because that's what I have to use as the basis of what I talk about. So I had over 400 clients as a marketing consultant in the last 20 years. Those 400 clients generally knew this much about their own business.
Yeah.
They might have known the skill set as an accountant that they needed to be an accountant. They might have known, if we're talking about bicycle shops, they knew how to repair a bicycle, or they knew enough about the bicycle to maybe try to convince somebody to buy one. But they usually knew nothing about the accounting. The accountant knew nothing about bicycles, but he didn't need to. I'm sorry. But it was just, anyway, but if a small business owner with all of that investment in his own business, his investment of time, money, his heart, his soul, his energies, or her energies, all of that's been invested, and yet they don't go to the trouble to understand their own business thoroughly from top to bottom, side to side. Well, the same thing's true when people are making these stock decisions. Are you going to put, we know how many people that have all of their money in Tesla right now? Other people probably have close to 100% in NVIDIA. Are you going to put all that money in without doing the homework, doing the work? And that's what we do on this channel. We try to help people do the work, or at least point them in the right direction. And I think that's what happened in the dot-com bust, is that people didn't do any homework. Their cab driver told them, "Oh, did you hear about pet.com?" I'm sorry that pet.com has become,
It's a good one. The sock puppet.
It's the one everybody uses, but in today's market, you could have the same thing. I mean, you're going to have some of the app makers, some of the people that come up with, applications, or whether it's an Optimus or a vehicle, or whether it is a app on your computer. There are going to be a lot of companies that come up with stupid ideas. The question is whether you're going to be stupid enough not to do the homework and put a lot of money behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you see some of the parallels, I guess, from those past years. This example we just went through with today. We have auditing, and we have financial statements, and we have rules, and we have regulations, but there's still a lot of things that are a bit opaque.
Yeah.
right? And one of the things for Tesla, for example, was safety data for FSD.
Right.
Not to take us off track, but there are some things out there
Off
where people point
track.
to.
You didn't just say that. Off track.
I
After
did.
you just spent, I mean, okay.
Pun intended.
You go back. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, the thing today, though, is that we're also focused on the narrative, right? And the narrative is such a powerful thing, and it certainly was back then too,
Sure.
right? And it's interesting, this is from Wall Street Engine, and I have no idea who Wall Street Engine is or whether this is even, valid, but right, this is, I think, clearly fake. Per Business Insider's leaked NVIDIA all hands memo, right? Maybe that existed, maybe it didn't. I don't know. Right. I'm assuming that there's internal communication in NVIDIA, right? So there has to be. The
Right.
question is this true?
Right.
Who knows? Right. But this fuels the narrative. So the comment here is that Jensen told employees the market did not appreciate what he called an incredible quarter, saying if they missed it, it would be proof of an AI bubble. And if they beat it, it just fuels the bubble. So they're kind of,
Yeah.
they can't win.
Yeah.
And he's joked that NVIDIA is basically holding the planet together, and even cited posts claiming the work is helping the U.S. avoid a recession. I think that's partly true. While noting the company lost $500 billion in market value in just a few weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, Jensen may be a little frustrated about that. And if this is true, that seems plausible, but it may not be accurate.
Right.
Right. Unless you can actually see the memo. Now, this is an interview with Jensen. So in this case, we could hear it directly from him. And he's saying that there's no AI bubble because AI manufactures intelligence in real time, which means every query consumes fresh compute and forces the system to scale its GPU base as usage grows. Right. And this is why demand for GPUs and power keep accelerating, and why this looks like a genuine industrial build out rather than a bubble. I think he's right about that. I think we're just getting started on this. Now, ultimately, one day, will there be bubbles as part of this? Absolutely. Right. And as you pointed out, maybe it's in the humanoid robot space is where we see it. Because once those products start to be sold and people get excited about the potential, the numbers that you and I have talked about for the last couple of years, there will be a huge bubble associated with that. Absolutely.
And you want to, the other thing is that in terms of information arbitrage, I went through a period of time where I was trying to have some venture capital money put into my manufacturing business. And what the VCs said over and over and over again, even though my partner and I had massive experience and really good degrees, over and over again, they said, you don't have the team. You don't have the kind of team that we're looking for to get you to 10x your business over the next 5 years. And so when you're looking at an NVIDIA and you see the team and you can make some judgments about his entire team, or you look at Musk and you look at all of his companies and the kind of people he hires. If you look at what Meta just did in terms of spending all this money. Now, maybe he spent too much. I don't know, but at least he was trying to hire the very best that he could possibly get. So was Enron doing that? I don't know. Was who was the other one? The other big one that went bust?
WorldCom.
Yeah, WorldCom. Was that a Ponzi scheme, or was it just a failure to hire really solid people to take care of the core business? And a lot of times that's what it really boils down to.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different reasons and throughout history of all the different things that have failed. It's interesting here. This is a chart that shows, according to this guy, NVIDIA doesn't have a fundamentals problem. It has a narrative problem. You look at the search trends for AI bubble, and it follows a little bit of a predictable heartbeat. Right? People kind of get worried. Is this too good to be true? And then they say, oh, no, it's fine. Is this too good to be true? No, it's fine. Is this too good to be true? Right. And part of the reason is that we've never seen anything like this before.
Right.
In our show that we're going to do about NVIDIA, the revenue and the earnings growth has been absolutely astounding. I don't think there's any company in history that's done anything like what NVIDIA has done.
Right.
And by the way, for Tesla investors, this is a prelude to what is likely to happen to Tesla.
Right.
So everything that we're seeing with NVIDIA today, I think in Tesla is going to have a similar kind of experience a couple of years from now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And of course, with NVIDIA, we also know that there are a lot of very prominent investors that missed this boat.
100%.
And so they're doing everything they can now to try to talk this down and get the stock as cheap as they can because, if you missed the train, here we go back to the trains again, you want to get back on.
Yeah. In fact, there was, I think Tom Lee was saying the other day that the reason he believes that we'll have a run up to 7,100 in the S&P before the end of the year is that the hedge fund managers and the guys who are managing the mutual funds and whatnot are way behind the eight ball this year in terms of not even equaling the S&P, and they got to get their numbers up by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy shenanigans that go on. And this cartoon, I think, is a good warning. Ignore their chasing and be careful where you step.
That's good.
All right. Let's move from an historical battle and discussion about this AI bubble to something else that's kind of brewing, and that's going to be this David and Goliath battle.
Okay.
Okay. And I even have a beautiful visual for this. It's not mine. But POW, strategy versus JP Morgan.
Oh, wow.
So this is a thing that's kind of evolving and brewing here over time. So there's a number of things. Let me take you through a few of them. So we've got Eric Trump saying that, JP Morgan undermined his family and their business. His family was debanked by JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Capital One for their political affiliations, right? And that's how we found Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's kind of a background. Now, recently, Jack Mallers was debanked by JP Morgan,
Mm.
and he showed the letter, and he's now got it framed
Mm.
that we received from the company. Jack is an important figure in the Bitcoin world, has a number of companies, including a new Bitcoin treasury company that will be in the same space as strategy.
Right.
Um, Another thing related to this is MSCI put out this memo on October 10th about potentially removing the Bitcoin treasury companies from MSCI indexes,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Because they have, more than 50% of their assets in their balance sheet in digital assets,
Right.
as if that's like a bad form of capital, right? Now, what's ironic about all this is MSCI itself has the greatest proportion of its assets as goodwill on their balance sheet,
Right.
right? So is goodwill better
Better or
form of
worse? Yeah.
capital than digital assets? I think the answer is no on that. So anyway, they've given, I think, until mid-January. Final conclusions will be announced January 15th, and resulting changes implemented on the February index review.
Mm.
Now, what's happened with this is people took this and said, oh, strategy is going to be delisted.
Hmm. Hmm.
No, this has nothing to do with their NASDAQ listing, right? And by the way, strategy also is now up for S&P 500 inclusion, which would be a way bigger deal than getting removed from the MSCI.
Right.
So two could happen at the same time.
Right.
But what was interesting is JP Morgan, who doesn't follow strategy, issued a report on strategy, almost like a short report, basically highlighting the risks from this.
Mm.
So it was interesting that they felt the need to issue a report on a company that they don't even follow,
Yeah.
right? It's starting to look a little bit more like they're attacking, right? Goliath versus David here.
Hmm. Hmm.
This is a response that Michael Saylor gave to the MSCI Index Matter. And he says, strategy is not a fund, not a trust, not a holding company. We're a publicly traded operating company with 500 million software business and a unique treasury strategy that uses Bitcoin as productive capital. This year alone, we've completed 5 public offerings of digital credit securities, right, representing over 7.7 billion in notional value. We also launched Stretch, STRC, a revolutionary Bitcoin-backed treasury credit instrument that provides variable monthly US dollar yield to institutional and retail investors. Right? And he says funds and trusts passively hold assets. Holding companies sit on investments. We create, structure, issue, and operate. Right? Our team is building a new kind of enterprise, a Bitcoin-backed structured finance company with the ability to innovate in both capital markets and software. No passive vehicle or holding company could do what we're doing. Index classification doesn't define us. Our strategy is long-term. Our conviction in Bitcoin is unwavering. Our mission remains unchanged. to build the first digital monetary institution on a foundation of sound money and financial innovation. Now, this would impact strategy, would impact the whole entire Bitcoin treasury space. So, we've kind of got this sort of battle set up now.
Right,
But what it appears to be is that JP Morgan is kind of instigating this battle. We had Jim Chanos, by the way, earlier this year announced that he was shorting strategy. Now, what is clear, though, is that JP Morgan probably feels a little bit threatened because this STRC is an instrument right now that's paying about 10.5% as an alternative to money market funds and CDs and even bank deposits.
Which 3 weeks ago, maybe, we went into a huge amount of detail about how all that works in a show with you. Yeah.
Now, if this all wasn't enough, and again, there's a whole lot more details I could share with you on this, but if this wasn't enough, more recently, JP Morgan files a new Bitcoin note offering 1.5 times gains through BlackRock's IBIT. So at the same time, they're attacking strategy and maybe getting some of their friends to attack strategy and issuing short reports to drive strategy down and hurt them. They're issuing their own Bitcoin-backed security, right? It's kind of ironic.
Kind of ironic, or maybe not.
Well, it's all is fair in love and war and securities business. So JP Morgan is offering institutional clients a structured Bitcoin product using IBIT that pays off big if Bitcoin takes off in 2028 with some downside protections and parameters baked in. So anyway, there's some details here. But the comment here is start preparing mentally for unexplainable Bitcoin price action leading into December 21st, 2026. Incentives are always in the fine print. In this case, it comes from the auto call feature that shuts off the tail risk for JP Morgan. So this time next year, Andy, could be interesting.
So, I thought that Bitcoin was complex. You and I have been talking about that for 2 years. You've been training me and teaching me how Bitcoin works and whatnot, and I thought it was complex. The instruments that are coming out now are taking Bitcoin and or Ethereum and others and adding like 1 or 2 layers of complexity on top.
Yes.
Making it almost impossible for anybody other than, well, maybe even making it impossible for economists to understand it. But certainly for the average guy on the street, holy mackerel, it's complex.
Well, the securities industry is doing what it does best. It takes things that are hard to understand and make them even more difficult to understand, and they make money from doing that.
Yeah.
To simplify it a little bit, if you just viewed Bitcoin as digital gold,
right,
then they're just creating securities around that commodity. Now, to say that Bitcoin is digital gold is massively simplifying what Bitcoin is. So it's a good start, but that's not where you should end in your understanding of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But this is shaping up to be a real battle. And of course, as I've said, well, a couple of things here, right? As AI starts to sort of infiltrate everything, AI is not going to stand for the banking system as it's currently structured. It's not going to work for AI. It doesn't work for micropayments.
Right.
It doesn't work for moving money internationally across borders over the weekend or during bank holidays.
Sure.
Not to mention the friction and the fees that the banks earn when they do these transactions for companies. The foreign exchange business, for example, is a massive revenue generator for banks. So they feel very threatened now by all these things, stable coins and what Strategy's doing in attracting capital. Right? If Strategy positions themselves as a digital bank, essentially, that threatens JP Morgan and the whole banking system.
Right.
Right. So, and the other thing I think too is what Strategy is going through now in terms of fighting against these powerful forces. As a Tesla investor, this rhymes with what Tesla's been facing over the years. Right. As powerful forces from the media, big oil, big auto,
right,
governments have been fighting Elon all these years and trying to hurt him in some way.
So is the Genius Act supposed to mitigate a little of this or somehow define it a little bit better so that even government agencies will be and finance involved companies will be better able to navigate.
Good question, Randy. I'm not intimately
Okay.
familiar with
Okay.
the ins and outs of the Genius Act. Maybe next time we can talk about that if I have a chance to take a look at it.
Okay.
I don't know specifically.
Okay.
But clearly we have a long way to go. We've got, JP Morgan still debanking people because of their Bitcoin position,
Right.
right? And Cynthia Lummis had a post the other day about, Operation Choke Point 2.0. Here we go again. Right. And so there's still some issues here, I think, to deal with.
Yeah. Very.
Um, but you know what? For the remainder of this week, I think the Bulls and Bears can come together and enjoy their favorite meal, turkey. Although I guess in this case, it looks like the Bears are shut out. They didn't exactly invite them in. Perhaps they'll get some scraps out the window.
Yeah, well, on a subject that's just slightly related, but I did so much research on it this morning that I can hardly stand not reporting on it. So, there's a lot of headlines about whether turkey prices are up, turkey prices are down, turkey dinner is up, turkey dinner is down. I mean, so many people having this battle back and forth. So I asked Grok and I said, look, I don't want any bias here. I want you to go out. I want you to look at all kinds of resources and the stuff that is the most, clear cut, the things that, real stats. Grok came back and said 5% down on turkeys, 5% down on turkey dinners. And yes, you can find other people that are saying it's up or down or whatever, but that the Poultry Association, which keeps track of wholesale prices of turkeys and retail prices of turkeys, said, well, the wholesale prices are up, but that's not what people are talking about.
Yeah.
But that the retailers just ate it, so to speak. The retailers are like, oh no, we want the consumer in here. So they took the higher, I guess the herd of turkeys, like the herd of cattle right now, is a little on the low side. So that's why the price at wholesale went up, but the retailers apparently have responded by saying, no, we want the consumers to come in the door.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? If I eat 10% more, what's happening to the cost of my Thanksgiving meal, Randy?
Yeah, well, wasn't that the whole story about Walmart saying that the price was down 25% or something? And they said, well, yeah, but you took 25% of the food off the plate.
Yeah.
I'm not sure any of that was true. I'm not, but those were the headlines. I mean, oh my gosh, right now there seems to be this absolute merciless campaign. You have to destroy Trump. You have to find a way. You have to come up with something. You can have the seditious six come out on TV and try to get him in terms of looking like maybe he's ordering people to do things that are illegal, or you can have a fight to the death over whether inflation is up, down, or sideways. And I just tell people, trueflation, trueflation, trueflation. Even it was mentioned again this week by not the Fed. Who was it? Darn, now I can't remember, but it was another significant player in the whole fight. It might have been 𝐒𝐚𝐦𝐿, the guy who was nominated for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS position. That was eventually not, but he's a major economist, and he said this week, Trueflation is tens and tens of thousands of daily inputs into their system.
Should be as good as you can get.
It should be as good as you can get, and every part of Trueflation right now is under 2.5. So whether it's the PCE analysis, whether it's goods, services, the overnight numbers, it's all under 2.5.
It's interesting because all this just points to the issue that what we talked about with NVIDIA, what we talked about with strategy versus JP Morgan, is what is the truth?
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's saying whatever they want to say, posting whatever they want to post. It's almost as like when you post that AI should automatically look at it and evaluate your post.
Yeah.
Right? And say, this is factually incorrect.
Right.
This is pure speculation. Right? Almost like we need those kinds of tools to be able to distill and also just take it a step further and say, this person is applying a well-known persuasion technique, right? And here it is, right? We need some help in sort of discerning what is real.
But and it would make the people that are posting poorly better too.
Yeah,
We were talking about how bad my spelling is. I found that having spell check helped my spelling
yeah,
because it's just constantly reminding you, no, I before E,
right.
And so you eventually you're like, oh yeah, yeah. I've only made that mistake 27 times. So if you're sitting there and you're posting on a regular basis stuff that is just garbage, and the community notes or Grok or whatever is coming in and saying, here's the stats.
There was one specific thing just on the strategy JP Morgan thing, just to go back to that for a second. There was this guy that posted on X, and I think his post had, maybe 500,000 views. But in there was some factually incorrect information. One of them, for example, I remember specifically, was that strategies raised 19.5 billion in the first 9 months of this year, and they used that to pay off debt. It's factually wrong. They actually used that to buy 19.5 billion of Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, yeah, right.
Right.
Yes.
And that's just a provable fact. You can look
Yeah.
at the company's filings and see that the company reports that on a quarterly basis,
Right.
or actually weekly basis. But it would be nice right at the level of X when the guy posts that to flag that and say, no, that factually is wrong.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So free speech is great. Like he can say whatever he wants to say.
Yeah.
But how many of the 500,000 people that read his post actually knew that was wrong?
No. And people believe it. I mean, you cannot, going back to inflation again, right now you have these University of Michigan, you've got the other, you've got these analyses of consumer confidence. And both of them are showing that consumers are telling them that they think inflation is going to be 4.5 next year.
Yeah.
There's nothing. You can't find an economist anywhere. I don't care, Democrat, Republican, whatever, that thinks inflation is going to be 4.5 next year. You might find some that think it's going to be 3 or 3.2, but you won't find any of them that think it's 4.5. But you can sure watch the talking heads on CNN or CNBC or MSNBC. You can find talking heads that'll tell you that inflation's out of control and it's never going to come down, and it's all because of the bad policies of the Trump administration and tariffs and all the rest. But no, again, we've been talking about it a lot. You get this narrative out there. It's very easy for the public to be persuaded by the narrative and be thrown completely off track.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the effect of that, if it has any effect, is it'll cause people to pull back on their spending, which will cause inflation to come down even more.
Right.
Right. Now, of course, maybe the motives behind the people of doing that are saying, well, we want to try to hurt the economy as much as possible so that then the next election they'll vote for us because we can say, look, they screwed it up. Right. Yeah, it's crazy, this battle that we have around these things. I wish.
What are you going to do? It's just, I was thinking about it the other day, is I was going to ask this of Nicholas Gibbs last night, what can we do? And I think you and I just kind of talked about it. I mean, X is only one platform, but I mean, Facebook and these others, they've got just as much compute. All of these platforms I think it's phenomenal that we have community notes on X. I think it's phenomenal that we can just poke the little circle with however that Grok circle, and we can get an instant analysis, and then we can dig if we want to.
Yeah.
And I use it every day. Multiple times a day, to check the facts. But maybe it would be good to flag them. Maybe that's all it really needs, is a flag. There's a flag for this is questionable facts. There's a flag for this is questionable analysis. A flag for this is questionable, hyperbole.
Yeah. Persuasion techniques, known persuasion techniques that are being used.
Yeah.
And
then
there's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can click on the flag if you want more.
Yeah.
There you go. Hey, Elon, did you hear that? I know you're watching.
On his Thanksgiving day off. Do you think Elon will not work on Thanksgiving?
Oh, no, he'll work.
Poor guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, I'll work. What are you going to do? You know, that's so much fun. If you're having fun, I've said this over and over again. Why would I
Not work.
Yeah, I've got it's right there. I can see the trees on the golf course. I do this. I don't play golf because
Yeah.
it's way more fun for me. Cern Basher, as always, great to have you here. Apparently, we're going to do a third show this weekend. It's going to be all about, remind me again, what's it going to be about? It's going
A little company called NVIDIA. You may have heard of it.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. I started to say Jensen, but no, it's actually the company. This analysis you did on X, which has gotten rave reviews. I'm super looking forward to that. All right. So for all of you out there, if you need somebody to help you with your money, I hope that's working. I never know whether I have to go the opposite.
I don't know. Is it up or down?
The guy in the black shirt and a reflection off the top of his noggin, that's the guy to talk to if you want some help managing your finances. All right, Cern, as always, thank you for coming on. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.
Thanks, Randy.